Hello, everybody. Everybody here? All right. I will call to order this meeting of the City of Boise's Public Works Commission on the 20th of August of 2025. And I will begin by a quick roll call. If you are here, please let me know. Commissioner Ellis,
Here.
Commissioner Pagan. Oh, yep, walking in along with Commissioner Wernz, also walking in. Thank you. Commissioner Lockett, Commissioner Morgan,
I'm here.
Commissioner Thornfeld.
Here.
Looks like we have full attendance of all of our membership. That brings us to the first item on our agenda, which is the approval of our minutes from our last regular meeting on May the 7th. With that, I would open to the commission for a motion.
Chair, I move to approve the minutes from the last session.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Morgan. Do we have a second?
Second.
A second from Commissioner Pagan. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you all. All right, on our regular agenda, the first item up is a Public Works general update. And for that, I will turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Well, good evening. Thanks for joining. Steve Burgos, the Public Works Director. And just a couple of things to note for the commission. Tonight's first topic, we just want to tee up. It's an overview of some of the work we've been doing to try to optimize project delivery within the Water Renewal Services Fund. That's going to be a kind of entree into some of the discussions we'll have around CIP and rate implications in the coming months. We have some very large projects, and we want to give you some updates on where we are with those in the coming months. Tonight is to tee up kind of some of the things we've been doing to try to get better at execution. We're proposing that our next session, we would like to cover the Community Climate Action Group. The mayor has asked us to try to figure out how we can get the community further engaged in climate action, because we can't, as city staff nor as a city government, solve these issues. So over the past several months, we've had a community committee talking about how better to engage the citizens of Boise in the process of climate action, and not us saying this is how we would like to do it. It's been more of a conversation of what would be an effective way to make you feel like you're engaged, and what are tools that we could use to engage you? What are things that you're willing to take action on? Those types of things. We'd like to bring that to the commission just to give you an update on what we're hearing and solicit your feedback as well. So that's what we're proposing at the next session. A couple of updates on some work we've been doing recently. The mayor asked us to convene all of the utilities, major utilities in Boise, to have an affordability discussion on rates. As you're probably well aware, most costs are going up for all the utilities, and there's been several rate cases at the Public Utilities Commission requesting rate increases from Veolia, from Idaho Power, Intermountain Gas, et cetera. And obviously, we're experiencing similar increase in costs, construction costs. How that manifests itself for citizens is in rates, and so we're seeing rates go up. And so the mayor asked me to get the utilities together just to start having a conversation about how do we start advancing utility affordability programs in kind of new, different ways. There are certainly some programs that are in place currently, and some citizens leverage them, not as many as we'd probably like. So part of it might be just education to the community on what's available, but I think it's going beyond that and looking at some other communities that are doing innovative work. What are they doing? Is that something that we could consider in Boise? The response we got from the other utilities was extremely positive. They were happy to be there and happy to have this conversation, recognizing that these challenges are not going to get any easier. So I just want to give you that update, and we continue to work that. Kristen Ryan, our Deputy Director for Shared Services, is leading up that effort. And so we'll at some point be coming back to you with some updates on that. The watershed, the attendance is through the roof. The remodeled watershed, in fact, I think one of our months, it may have been June, maybe, we had as many people come to the watershed as we did all of the year. The last year it was fully open. So yeah, the numbers are really through the roof, and we're getting a great response from the community. Um, from what we're hearing, just very appreciative of the approach, very friendly for children, but also information that resonates with adults as they're going through the exhibits. So talking with the watershed staff, they're really excited. Lots to learn. Some of the new exhibits are not maybe wearing as well as we'd hoped. Kids are gonna be tough on these things. But overall, really excited about the response, community response, and yeah, so we're really proud of it. And then the last one is just an update. At some point, we'd like to get in front of you as well on workforce development. Tina Riley is our org strategy manager, and she's helping lead an effort in conjunction with HR on kind of a combination of, one, how do we get more folks interested in our industries that we work in, water, wastewater, engineering, et cetera. But just as importantly, once we bring people to the city, we hire folks. What is their journey here at the city if they have a career at the city of Boise? What does it look like? What I'm learning is recruiting someone and why they come to the city is different from why they stay at the city. And so those kind of revelations as we're going through the career process of somebody, or the career path rather, of somebody who comes to the city, where do we have gaps? Certain things right now, supervisor training is an area of emphasis. We know that's a gap we want to get some improvement on. But that'd be something I think would be interesting to come back to the commission with at some point. So those are some high level updates I wanted to provide at the jump here at the meeting, and open up to any questions you might have for me.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Lockett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Steve, who are these attendees at the watershed? Are they school groups, individuals? How have those stats compared to previous attendance? And great news. P.S.
Yeah,
great news.
Yeah, great news. Chair, Commissioner, a mix of schools that have kind of been the traditional customers, but then we're getting a lot of feedback from families who are attending, lots of homeschoolers that are coming to the exhibits, and lots of families that are coming almost exclusively because it's free. And that's something that's very rare in the community. And that's one of the things that's been emphasized the most in the feedback we're getting, is that this is an opportunity for me to provide education to my child, and it's at no cost, and it's greatly appreciated. So I think those families, I think generally where we're seeing a lot of uptick, and in particular homeschoolers.
Other questions, comments from the commission? I have a offer, not a question, but as you are carrying conversations around sort of the career cycle and recruitment, workforce development, I'm happy to plug in outside of these meetings to offer any inside advice, counsel, ideas that I can throughout the process. So feel free to reach out, and I can plug into my existing networks and ideate further.
Thank you, Chair. We'll do that.
If there's nothing else, then we can move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the Water Renewal Services Planning and Program Update. And with that, I will turn it over to staff.
There we go. Try again. Haley Faulkner, Deputy Director for Water Renewal Services. Today, going to share a kind of broader water renewal update, a little bit of a focus on the planning and program management, like facets of the work that we're doing as the foundation for some upcoming conversations. Did want to note I was recently at the watershed on a Wednesday, and that was one of my first questions after was, do we have enough funded for the maintenance of these? Because kids are hard on the interactive components of the exhibits, but that's something we are planning for. And it's been remarkably, particularly those watershed Wednesdays have been really fun to see how many folks are out there. And today's presentation, we're going to tag team a little bit. So I'll take the opening and then want to introduce Allison Hornack, who's our utility planning manager for water renewal. She joined us earlier this spring and is leading that long-term planning and our capital planning work. And then Josh Baker, who's been with the city for several years, but was recently promoted to the programs senior manager and oversees the capital delivery within water renewal. So he'll talk about the program management and kind of the update of the work and delivering this work that we need to do. But with that, I will get started. I think. Maybe as a way of an obligatory background slide, water renewal encompasses 5 locations, which I'll touch on in a minute. We have approximately 1,000 miles of pipelines, the 29 pump stations or lift stations that go with those, over 200 staff that are delivering the work day to day on this, and about a $3 billion replacement value. That's one that would be good to update in our current state, but approximately if we were to replace everything today as is, the facilities and the pipelines, that's what we would be looking at. So it is a substantial investment and a substantial set of infrastructure on behalf of the community that we manage. The facilities themselves, of course, West Boise, and that's where the watershed is located. We've got Lander Street there that we've talked about a lot in the older facility, the phosphorus removal facility out at Parma, and then our utilities maintenance where the staff are that maintain the pipelines and pump stations, and then the 20 Mile South Farm. And of course, in the future, we'll have our recycled water facilities. Part of what we want to frame today is, in the past, we've come before the commission and talked about this updated planning process, what's in our utility plan and the vision for where we're headed. Those things are still kind of holding true, and we'll talk about that today. And these kind of facets that we're looking at in condition, capacity, and regulatory compliance are continuing to compound. They're happening simultaneously, and they're things that are changing the way that we have to look at how we're investing. Of course, we talk about aging infrastructure in its simplest form, just looking at what we have. Lander Street built in 1950, celebrated the 75th anniversary of water renewal, slowly working our way through a true replacement of that system. So kind of unit process by process, getting in there and updating that. West Boise built after the Clean Water Act. So we're coming up on 50 years of that facility. I shared that with DEQ and they were surprised by the 50-year mark. I think just that it doesn't feel like it's been that long. That is the newer facility. And so it was a stark reminder that these are aging assets. And then more for the fun fact of we do have parts of our collection system that were built in the 1800s. Most of that is not. We have some small sections and a good collection system history, but pretty remarkable that we're maintaining assets that are that old. I think a similar note, and Ali will talk a bit more about this, but when those facilities were built, there was a tremendous push of federal investment to make with water renewal infrastructure with the Clean Water Act. The availability of federal funding really compounds some of these needs that is really not existent for the type of investment that we're making. And then we've got these increasing regulations to protect the river or as we're going to groundwater. And sometimes those regulations can compete with themselves and actually cause a decrease in what our capacity is. So we've got all of these pieces kind of squeezing at the same time. And then when we get into the delivery of this work, both for ourselves and the contractors who we work with, there are workforce and contractor challenges that are kind of built into all of this. That said, that's going to be kind of the part of the foundation for what we talk about. But zooming out a bit in this vision for the utility plan, we will continue to use this cartoon graphic. But the vision for what was in the utility plan and where we're headed is that we continue to invest in West Boise and Lander Street and our collection system, but that our new investments and new capacity will shift towards recycled water. And so that's where we get our recycled water facility, groundwater recharge, and start that move to producing water that stays here and is an investment into the future. And we've talked a fair amount. I mean, you all are a body of our community engagement as a representation of the public and informing and guiding some of our work. But this kind of each of these little circles is a different way in which we have or do communicate and seek feedback with the community. This started in a really broad way with the utility plan, but continues to be the way in which we are gathering information and kind of forming that into our work and want to continue to do that through our dialogues with you all. And those pieces of feedback that we hear, the values that are important, are what we try to pull from and then build into the work that we're doing. And so a big piece of this is these words, and we use them a lot, and we may use them in different ways, but What we heard and continue to hear, and I'm hoping to kind of check in with you all here today, is that maintaining our existing system is very important, that we have an investment that we've made, and investing in the condition and replacement of that system is a high priority. That having capacity for current and future residents and businesses of Boise is also important, and that meeting our regulatory requirements. So that part of this pyramid, it's like those things are foundational. And there are some things that we've labeled here as customer or community expectations, things like being proactive, protecting the Boise River above and beyond regulation, keeping water local. Those pieces are all a part of this. This pyramid and these sort of tenants or drivers then they manifest as projects, and they manifest as projects that may have parts of each of those, but it's like, okay, the work at Lander Street most recently was really a condition-based project to replace headworks and replace the disinfection system. And so did those things still, maybe just as a point of pause with you all, are those still tenants that resonate and are the things that should be, or are there kind of questions that you all have about those different drivers?
I'll open it up to the commission. Any initial feedback?
Anything missing?
Commissioner Ellis?
Sure. I just, when I first saw it, it just took me a second to think of like importance level. And so you've got this foundation is what I'm seeing at the bottom. And it's almost like the iceberg. It's like what's above. I don't know if that was your intent.
Yes,
Okay,
Chair,
okay.
Commissioner, we did this multiple ways and landed on that as exactly the base, the foundation. If we don't do those parts of our work, like regulatory compliance really is embedded in all of these as an example, that if we don't maintain the condition of the assets we have, we will have regulatory compliance issues. So it's like all of it kind of supporting to an overall community expectation.
Yeah, it seems difficult to disentangle with everything. So I think it's all pretty much part of the same pyramid, I guess. And customer expectations, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be called out on its own, just from my perspective, because it's all like these are ways that customer expectations are met by this strategy of condition and replacement, capacity building, regulatory compliance, and then just it's more of a communication strategy, I guess, of like, hey, here's how we're doing all of this. But I don't know if that resonates with.
Chair, I really appreciate that. I think that is probably the next evolution. We've used this slide a fair amount. We brought it back. But you'll see on the previous slide, I just had the 3 circles of the bottom pieces. I think it's great to hear that. And I think great to validate that with you all, that the green parts of this are really the community expectations, how we talk about it, what that looks like, kind of how we bring that back may look different. And this is sort of a build on that. It's like what we heard in the utility plan is that most people agree with investing in the condition and capacity of our system, with an understanding that that regulatory compliance is at the core of all of that. And just kind of wanted to close this part for me with where we are. And we've talked a fair amount about recycled water with you all. That'll be coming back around to in some of the future conversations to close the loop on those groundwater recharge conversations and what we've learned with some of the analysis and data in the meantime. But if the circle part of this was 2020, the approval of the utility plan, the vision for where we're headed with recycled water, we're probably right now like at the bend in that curve. There's these pieces that we need to get through on setting the foundation, or kind of moving through this program development and into creating and executing on the project to create a new facility. And then really seeing the outcome of flexibility for our system, flexibility in where the water can go and how we can manage that and how we can use this resource. But we're at maybe the hardest part at this current moment, which is making the turn into what that future vision is. But wanted to mention today, and you'll hear it through the planning work and the program execution work that Ali and Josh share, that's where we're headed. That's the work that we're doing, and we're seeing those things. And this was kind of the last slide, or the outcome of the utility plan work in 2020. And we're still kind of on that path. This is the roadmap that we have. And we're doing a utility plan update that is kind of showing us that that's a continued path forward. And with that, Wanted to first introduce Allie, and she'll be talking a little bit about that evolution of planning. I think some of the commissioners were involved at the end of our utility planning efforts last time, but really what Allie will talk about is that evolution. It was intended to be a living plan that wasn't something we would produce and set and go execute line by line, but rather was a set of intentions and a vision for where we're going with some projects and some intentional touch points. And that's what she'll be sharing today is what does that look like? And then Josh will be talking about how we're doing. So thank you.
Slight adjustment. Thank you, Haley. Yes, I wanted to continue on what Haley had shared on the vision that was developed in the 2020 plan and how we're continuing that and seeing it forward and some of the things that are affecting how we are moving through that plan. A bit of a continuation on the drivers that Haley had shared. Again, you're going to see the condition, the capacity, the regulatory requirement drivers underpinning all of the work that we do. What I want to share here was a really high level timeline starting in 1950 when Lander Street was brought online to today. And each of the dots on this timeline really represent a major milestone of investment at one of our water renewal facilities or within collections. So you can see in the early decades and years, you might have seen one of these drivers or projects coming to fruition one at a time. We're focused on one piece delivering, and that may be year to year, but even in those early years, maybe one per decade when we're talking about these large investment projects. As you move to the right on the timeline and a little bit closer to where we are now, you can start to see the increasing pace of those drivers and the needs within water renewal. And that's what we're really feeling. Haley talked a bit about those stacking drivers, and we can see the pace of them. They're just coming together in a way that we are acting on these all at once, and it's really increasing some of the complexity of the projects that we've got going forward. It looks a little different, but really this is just a zoomed in vision of the same timeline. It gets a little bit noisy at the end there. So I wanted to show around the last 13 years or so, where you can again start to see those increasing pace in the investments that we're making. Zooming in on what's happened since the 2020 utility plan, of course, we were all there and part of it. One of the big pieces was COVID. It was a huge disruption in how we deliver our work, either through construction cost inflation, schedule impacts to our projects, and even workforce changes, how we deliver the projects and work that we're doing. So it was a huge shift in what we were producing. Again, that's stacking on top of some of those increasing regulatory and need to invest in our aging infrastructure, as well as increased growth in our community, that we're balancing all of those. And you can see on the far right there today where they start to stack up. We are making investments in each of those drivers at the moment. And we're doing that at each of our facilities too. So we do have many major programs going on at once, and it increases the complexity of what we're trying to produce. So we talked a little bit about what's changed since 2020. What I wanted to share here is a graph showing some of the key cost centers that impact water renewal. And this is on a national scale, so not specific to the region, but if we're looking at costs in these centers, the top being chemical on that orange line for our operations, or the blue line being the electrical cost increase since 2020. I wanted to focus on the red line on the bottom, which shows a 50% construction cost increase nationally, which mainly impacts our large capital and R&M projects, which is where we manage in the CIP. And again, this is at a national look. So when we're talking about our local environment, we see things a little bit different, right? With some of the huge construction that we have going on in the area, competing for resources, for workforce, all of those pieces, we're actually seeing construction costs that are increasing above that 50% raise that we've seen nationally. So all of these pieces we're managing through our ongoing planning, and I wanted to highlight a few of the things that we have ongoing through execution of how we're adjusting and pivoting to some degree from the 2020 plan to stay adaptable. So I'll highlight a few, lots of text on this screen, so I'll just give key points there. But construction costs, of course, we're looking at those very closely. Some ways that we've adapted to that, we are reviewing our project scopes where relevant, and in some cases reducing those scopes. So maybe building a little bit less than what we had initially planned, or maybe considering deferral or a phased approach to construction where the timeline is a little different, but we're intending to get the same outcome at the end. Of course, as we're making those decisions around needed projects, there is some additional risk that water renewal takes on as we make those decisions around capital costs, but we're leveraging risk registers and mitigation strategies to make sure that we're tracking those metrics over time. We're partnering that with some of our regulatory approaches. So that was one of our key drivers. So we're working in partnership with DEQ, namely on integrated planning, which is a mechanism through the Clean Water Act, where essentially we can lay all of these drivers on the table, see where they're overlapping, and then consider project sequencing in partnership with DEQ to make sure that we are maximizing environmental benefit while also looking to affordability for the community. And it's an avenue to pursue that with our regulatory agencies. So that's currently underway. Many key adjustments in project delivery. And I think Josh will get a little bit more into the specifics in this area. But one of the key points is the introduction of the program management at our water renewal facilities, where essentially instead of managing project by project, we're able to look at a portfolio of the projects together and identify key efficiencies through design and delivery. We've also been leveraging our risk registers to look at procurement of equipment and kind of provide some additional cost certainty for our long lead items for projects that have those large equipments that right now are fluctuating greatly given the market. Of course, all of that's partnered with our operating costs. We're talking a little bit more about capital delivery, but we're looking at our operating costs. And in the FY26 budget, we did find some savings. We're also looking at technology and how we can produce the same type of work more efficiently with different technology through a technology plan that's underway. And then underpinning all of it is a cost of service study that our finance team is working on. This is an update to what was done in coordination with the 2020 utility plan. So it's really how are we allocating our treatment costs to customers in the right way? And this is the study that allows us to identify that. So that's going on as well. All of this, you're seeing the changes that we're adapting to and really identifying the need to stay agile in our planning. And what we've moved away from is, the plan that's good for 5-10 years. And then we do the whole effort again to a more adaptive cyclical version of that, where we're constantly taking in those externalities and adjusting our plan and flexing in a way to benefit the community. So we can see a circle of what this could look like at a high level, right? There's the identification of a need. We kind of move into prioritizing those amongst water renewal, into funding, design, and execution. And then where we have adapted a bit is as we're going through construction and design and all of those pieces, we're immediately moving back into the gap analysis. What's next? What's changed since we started this planning or this design and construction effort? We're taking that in, and then we are immediately identifying the next need and moving through this in a cyclical fashion, whether annual or regularly, as opposed to just those large updates that kind of happen in a vacuum. And the example of this that we've seen most recently is the 2020 utility plan. Obviously, a lot of information coming out of that, but one of the main projects would have been a capacity expansion at West Boise, which is currently in design construction right now. And even as we are in the process of getting construction underway, we're identifying what's the next bottleneck, what's the next spot where we need to invest in capacity so that we can bring it into our anticipated utility plan update and start the cycle all over again. And with that, moving from planning into program execution, I want to pass it off to Josh so he could share a bit more about what we're doing in that.
I'm sorry, interrupt, Chair. You can go ahead. Sorry, just a comment on what Ali covered. That approach that we're like kind of that more adaptive management and almost an annual to every 2 years looking and making sure that we're still headed down the right path. These externalities are changing pretty quickly. It's also internally challenging because staff's not necessarily used to within water renewal seeing a quick shift on a project or a change in scope that maybe was set in years past. It'd be like, hey, this is set for 10 years. We're good to go. And so part of our challenge is change management that we're trying to be intentional about and bringing staff along that we need to be better at, frankly. So our internal communications, we're trying to up our game a little bit, which gives us a better chance to execute. So
that's a great segue to Steve, and thank you, Ali and Haley, for setting everything up here. So I first want to talk a little bit about what program management is and why we're we're doing it. So Allie and Haley did a great job of laying out like some of the challenges that we're facing, and we know these things are happening. We're trying to be adaptive. And so beginning in about 2018, we went out and we looked at what is the industry doing and what do the industry experts say. And I'm not sure if any of you are familiar. There's an organization called the Project Management Institute, PMI. They are the gold standard for how to execute projects and programs. And the structure and the organization that we've set up within the city mirrors what PMI has said is the best way to execute on like an industrial type construction scale. So what we have is we have the utility up above, and the utility is really focused on the planning, what's next, what's in that 20-year-ish window. Below that, we have a layer of program managers, and the program managers are specific to each facility. There's one for Lander, one for West, and one for the Recycle Water program. And each of those programs, it's made up of a few people, and you'll get to see some of them later, is focused on like that 10-year window within that particular place. And so they're organized based on geographic location. So Lander Street is worried about what is happening on Lander in that 10-year window. They also are worried about what's happening at Recycle Water and at West Boise also, because they're part of the overall utility. So those program managers kind of step in and out of like that utility and then down to their projects that they're doing. Below those programs are projects and project managers that are executing the day-to-day things. So that's kind of the organization. You got the utility, program management, and then projects underneath that. Some of the reasons that we've implemented this are capital throughput. With all of those challenges, with the slide, I love Allie's slide that like shows all of the dots stacking up there on the right-hand side of the timeline. With that happening, we really have to drastically increase our throughput in how fast we're getting projects out the door. So that's part of it. We've changed our risk management approach a little bit. So before, risk management was something that we would consider, and maybe we would, dare I say, like maybe even overfund it on a particular scale. Now we're taking and looking at each risk, how it could affect the project, what is the probability it's going to happen, and we fund those specific risks, and we're tracking all that to make sure that we're doing a good job managing those risks on a day-to-day basis. And that goes from the utility level all the way down into the very, nuts and bolts of the project. We've really changed the way we're reporting. So for the first time, we have a pretty robust reporting structure where our senior leadership are receiving reports on a monthly basis from our programs that's showing how our costs are doing, how we're doing on schedule, other milestones that we may be hitting. And then we have really realized some great savings, and I'll talk about a few lessons that we've learned in a good way with cross-project coordination. So with this programmatic approach, we can have teams that are looking and saying, hey, we're coming in under budget on this particular project. We know this project is suffering. We can move budget over there to cover it. They don't have to go, seek a big interim budget change. We're able to fund that without changing the overall budget, it's a big win for us to be able to be more nimble and help the different projects that need it. And also, if a project's coming in under budget, we're either able to realize those savings. Maybe we can tackle another project that we have on our list, another big thing that comes up. It gives us a lot of that flexibility. So that's why we've moved into program management. I want to give a quick update on where the 3 programs that we have right now are, and then we'll talk about some of those lessons that we've learned coming out of that. So the first one up is Lander Street. Lander Street was our first program. It's probably where we've learned the most about program and project execution. It's kind of been a sandbox. Steve has referred to it a couple of times as our Lander sandbox, which I like. So we've gotten to try a lot of neat, innovative things out there. The items in green was the phase 1 project, the headworks and the UV. That got completed in 2022. The blue is what is currently under construction right now. That is a $265 million project to replace the middle of the plant. So we're adding new primary clarification, we're adding new secondary clarification, adding fermentation. And this is really the bulk of the liquid stream of our plant, the liquid side of our water renewal facility. This is really working on that, kind of the heartbeat of that liquid side system. And then in the future, in that 10 to 15-year window, we're looking at that in the orange color, which is the phase 3, which is the solids. By the end of this 3-phase project, I hope to be retired, and we will have basically replaced all of Lander Street, which is kind of sort of monumental and a little bit sentimental, right? Because Lander was born in 1950. And then so by the end of this and the 2030s, we will have completely rebuilt it, and then probably have to start back again at the head of the plan and start going through it again by the time all that's over with. So really neat. Lander Street is firing on all cylinders right now, which is pretty awesome to see. The next program that we kicked off was the West Boise program. So West Boise is our bigger of our two existing water renewal facilities. Right now in blue and orange, those two projects are running simultaneously. They're pretty big undertakings. I think it's about $140 million worth of work between the two. So the secondary system, again, is working on that liquid side capacity project for West. It's increasing the capacity for West, increasing our reliability, and working on a lot of condition driven things. So we're adding an aeration basin there and some other like plant-wide utility stuff. The UV system is a partial replacement of condition and a partial addition of capacity. So when you think about the pyramid with the drivers, we're tackling in all of these, we're tackling multiple portions of that pyramid. And then in the future at West Boise, we're tracking a tertiary treatment. This has started in the preliminary design stage. We've held off on it until we were able to kind of get some of the planning, like the integrated planning that Allie talked about, figured out. And this is part of what she mentioned, which is this new approach where we can be more nimble than we used to be. So with program management, we're able to say, hey, we're going to pause this. We're going to refocus our efforts on this part, knowing that we could have to come back to that. And that's okay. The team is set up to be able to do that. So West is also doing good. And I have, again, some lessons learned here in a minute on West. The last one to mention is our recycled water facility. So where we're at right now is I think all of you are aware, but we have purchased the land out there. It's if you're familiar with where the Winco distribution center is out off of Eisenman Road, that's where our property is. The team right now is in the middle of preliminary design. So they're looking through different ideas for treatment train. They're doing some more studies that are kind of building on what we did with our pilot, looking at facility site layouts and getting that really programmed. Here towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year, we're hoping to have that preliminary engineering done, and then we can figure out how we move forward, farther into that execution. And it's an important thing to note. One of the big drivers that we are working on right now is how do we diversify our discharge capacity? And so by having aquifer recharge or opportunities for industrial reuse or some other sort of reuse, we're able to diversify our portfolio for our discharge, which really helps with our risk profile for the city. Last but not least, shout out to our collections system. Unfortunately, they don't get a lot of publicity, but I am personally aware of something where they were up all night trying to fix a break. I think it was last week. So, they work hard, they toil day and night on our behalf, and they have a lot going on too. And something that's been really fun, they're in Kristen's group in shared services, but we've been able to really partner with them to say like, hey, we've learned these lessons in program management. How can we help you set these up, and vice versa? We've been able to exchange that information, which is awesome. They have a ton of stuff going on. They're working on big, huge electrical improvements to all of our lift stations. They're replacing miles of pipeline every year. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes on. The plants get Jasper recycle water. These are big. We have big cranes. I don't know if anybody's driven past Lander, but it's our giant crane and everything. And these folks are working day in and day out to do the little things that allow those big plants to work. So shout out to them. They're doing amazing work there too. So how is it going? From my perspective, it's going well, thank goodness. So, in 2015, 2018, we're looking at doing like one major project between the facilities, and maybe 2 to 5 R&M projects. And R&M projects are smaller projects. That's like an equipment replacement, a roof replacement, maybe like a small building addition or something like that. And we've gone from that till 2019 to present. Currently, we have 10 major CIP projects going on across our utility, which is a 10-fold increase in the amount we've got going on. We have 20 to 30 R&M projects going on across our facilities. So it's again a major, tenfold increase in the amount of work and the amount of projects that we're doing. And while we've done all that, we've launched the Recycle Water Program and the Jasper Project, which are all big parts. So we've really ramped pretty fast to go from where we were in 2015, 2018, where we were just running Lander, to basically running a whole bunch simultaneously. So it's a big increase. And we've learned some good things along the way. So some of the successes I want to highlight is our program management team. We have a team of about 10 of us that work to deliver that work. It's a newer department to the city, I guess you could say. But we have an amazing team. We have on our team, we have some folks who come from the airport. Actually, we have some folks that came to us through regulatory means. We have some folks that have come to us through construction. So we have a really diversified group of folks that are working to bring these different projects to fruition, which is awesome. A big shout out to when we launched these programs, we needed consultant help to do that. And Stantec, who's actually here, they were instrumental in helping us get Lander and West Boise off the ground. But a monumental thing that happened a few months ago, which was kind of bittersweet, was that we were able to come off of having them help us at Lander. So our Lander team was finally able to take the program, which is what we always wanted from the beginning. How can the city take this over, save us money? We were able to make that transition. Now the Lander team is working completely on their own. Everything that they function is within the city of Boise city side. And then we're looking to do the same thing at West. So as soon as they can get fully up to speed, that we're going to be able to take them off of that also, which is good, for the city. It's a huge win for us. It really shows that we're moving here in this right direction. Phase 1 that ended in 22 came in $2+ million under budget. This is largely due to that programmatic approach. It's also due to some amazing partnering that we had with McIlvain, our CMGC. So we've done and pivoted to alternative delivery, which also helps us save on cost. Lander Phase 1 is a huge success. I'd also like to point out that project began in 2019. We went through the pandemic and still came in under budget, which is pretty amazing. Again, a testament to that structure and really the teams that we had out there. Ali mentioned this, we've really upped our game on risk. We have risk that is much more visible up and down our chain of command. Steve gets our reports. He gets to see the top 5 risks from every program every month. And we get to have good conversations about that. And it's a way for our project managers to flag those things up the chain as far as they need to go. Lander Street Phase 2 is currently tracking under budget, which is another win. And West Boise and the Recycle Water programs have both spun up in record time. So with Stantec helping us stand up Lander, we learned a lot of lessons. We were able to stand up West and Recycle Water faster and cheaper for their size, which is good because of those lessons that we learned at Lander Street. And last but not least, I want to shout out to the amazing team of city folks who work on this. So without the people on the screen, we couldn't make any of this successful. So with the folks that report to me, with Anthony and Matt Plaisted at Lander and West, and then I'm still the Recycle Water, but that'll be filled in soon. And then their teams below them, Nicole, Brandy, Jill, Mark, Amanda, Deanne, Justin, and Abigail, just to name them. They've done a tremendous amount of work. They work day in and day out to make these programs successful. You saw the major increase in our throughput, and it's all thanks to these folks working really hard day in and day out. With that, I will hand it back over to Haley to wrap us up.
I know that was a lot and we'll leave plenty of time for discussion, but it was fun to listen to this. And I wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I have that with the planning process that we've changed and we implemented that. We started in 2015, had that plan approved, Mayor and Council in 2020, the program management starting in the 2018 timeline, that these are in so many ways the long game. We knew that we were doing this, we were making these shifts, and here we are in 2025. And I think able to say with some confidence, we're making progress. And what we anticipated, there are things that are working and we're learning from the things that maybe didn't go how we wanted, but it was kind of fun to be able to sit back and be like, oh, this is not sort of an immediate response, but we're kind of a years-long process to see some of that success. And then I think another piece is that as the complexity of our system increases, whether it's how we deliver work or how we need to prioritize or the regulatory process, like our what we do and how we do the work has to be more simple. And our ability to do that and see that in-house and to simplify the risk register, the processes, how we communicate really helps on then some of the pace of that. And then both of them and their teams are a testament to our ability to bring this work in-house, which ties back to the workforce conversation. But that planning piece and to be able to, with Ali and her team, do some of that work in-house to build those competencies and skills, but also be able to react quickly to some of the changes that Steve had also mentioned. And then Josh spoke to it very well on what we're seeing by bringing that staff in-house has just been really great. And so with that, and I definitely want there to be a time for discussion, but what we want to be coming back then with you all, it's like, okay, here's the wide net of not just what we're doing, but a little bit of the why and the how, is bringing back that capital plan. We talk about the CIP. That's really our sort of 10-year look of what needs to come next and what are the drivers that are shaping the priority of that and why does it look the way that it does. With that, the commensurate financial plan that comes with that and some of the other pieces, but wanting to be able to bring that back to this group. But I also wanted to ask if, we shared a lot today. It was a pretty wide and maybe some different nuggets than what we've brought back before. So in addition to that and kind of the closing out the recycled water and groundwater recharge conversation in our discussion here, I'd be curious if there were pieces you heard that you'd want us to make sure to bring back some additional information or details on in future water renewal conversations. And with that, I'll open it up to the commission.
Right, opened up to commission. Any ideas or requests or questions from the commission? Commissioner Wirtz.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciated Josh's shout out on the collection team. Just because, and it made me think of facilities get all the glory, I guess, or all the attention. And I don't really know, but I was curious how much energy goes into forward thinking on, it's the oldest part of the system. It's older than the facilities. And obviously a lot of it's been replaced and upgraded and things like that. But it's such an important part that I think most citizens don't really think about what's under the street. They might know a little bit about facilities. And just occurred to me, I really don't know what percentage or what kind of an investment the city makes in being proactive, or the department makes in being proactive on replacement and upgrade on the collection system. And I thought it just kind of occurred to me, it's kind of been missing a little bit from my thinking, a little bit on the overall facilities improvements. And it's a big, huge part of the system.
Yeah. Chair, Commissioner Werns, that is, I think it could be a great opportunity to bring back some of the information and updates that are happening there. But the collection system work has been making investments on a risk-based prioritization for a long time. They've been kind of in an asset condition and prioritization in some ways ahead of the game, and sort of a shame that we haven't had that at the forefront. But we're going through an update to that process as well, and ensuring that the prioritization there and what we do in the facilities are aligned so that we can kind of speak the same language and be talking about that. With the investment in the collection system in the CIP has increased, especially over the last few years. And as the collection system team works through that, and then also getting kind of more clarity on the what and the why, we'll focus on the large diameter pipelines because we carry a higher risk with those. So the prioritization based on condition and size, and there's other factors in there. But bringing that in also to the updates to the planning process so that they're all kind of in the same place. And it can be somewhere from, I would be guessing at a number. That would not be a wise thing to do. We can bring some of that back, or as we bring in this updated CIP conversation, I think that's another place where we're really seeing a benefit of bringing work in-house and delivering it with our staff in the collections engineering team.
Yeah, I would just add, Chair, Commissioner Warrens, the system, we shared it's 1,000 miles of pipe, and let's just make an assumption it's 100 years per stick of pipe that it lasts. That suggests that we need to be replacing about 10 miles a year. We're not doing that right now, so we need to pick up the pace on replacement, and we know that. And then there's these really kind of odd when we present the information, we'll come back because I think you'll appreciate the amount of detail that team has and how much hard work goes into the prioritization of pipeline replacements. But an interesting anecdote is back in 1961 and 62, up on the bench, at the time it was the Bench Sewer District got a federal grant, and they put about 100 miles of pipe in 2-year window because it was all greenfield construction. So as we start to look at, okay, that was 1962, so 2062, that pipeline probably needs to be replaced. We're not going to do 100 miles in 2 years. That's not going to happen. And so part of our charge is to figure out, okay, how do we start to parse that out? And we start doing some a little bit early. Maybe we maintain some to maybe push them out past that 2062 timeframe. But those are the kind of questions that this team is asking and answering. And they have a ton of data. It's really interesting work. So we'll come back with some more information. I think you'll appreciate it.
Commissioner Pagan?
I just wanted to commend you guys for talking about all the projects that you guys have going on. That's a lot that's happening, and it's really helpful to see all the things that are going on, especially the tenfold increase in the projects. I think it's helpful for me to kind of go back to my community and kind of talk about that a little bit more, because so many people that I've talked to are talking about, oh, there's just yet another construction project in the city of Boise. And so maybe some feedback for you guys when you do start to do the water renewal construction or anything like that. Maybe just kind of having some sort of educational signage or something like that that's out there that helps people understand what is happening and what is going on, so that it kind of mitigates some of the conversation about what is this yet another construction project sort of thing, especially if there's any kind of pipeline that's going in from Micron across I-84. I'm sure that would cause some sort of consternation. So yeah.
Commissioner or Chair Commissioner, thank you. And I think that's fair. We were talking today about something very similar and how we do that and do it in a proactive sort of way.
Commissioner Ellis?
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering about the 3 billion replacement value, because I don't know, has the number changed in the most recent 5 years? Because I was trying to remember when I was on the advisory board for the water renewal research. I can't remember the full name of the advisory board, but I think it was like 2017, maybe. I don't think it was 3 billion that we were saying at the time, but I remember whatever number it was, I was astounded, and I was telling lots of people that number. But now I'm like, wow, what are they going to think with 3 billion? And has it changed drastically since 2017?
Yeah, Chair, Commissioner, it has. 2 billion was the number that we
Okay.
used. And so you're seeing a combination of the increased cost to replace,
Yeah.
but also the increase as we add things to our system and it grows, then there's more things to replace. And that really is, we would never do it in that way where it would be everything all at once, but that's really intended to encapsulate the value of the assets that we're managing. And it's a big number.
That's how I got people to listen when I said that.
Chair, I would just add, I was talking to Idaho Power recently, and it's interesting that kind of linear utilities, right? So we have pipelines, they have power lines. It's a kind of an interesting, almost standard with those utilities that maybe 3/4, 2/3 of your costs are in the transmission and distribution in their world, and in the pipelines in our world. So to the point we were making earlier, like the plants get all the glory, but the moving product from point A to point B is where most of the cost comes in. And so those costs have increased pretty significantly, and the collection system is a good example of that, where we're going to need to pick up the pace, but the cost of pipe and steel pipe in particular is increasing. So yeah, we've just got to try to manage it.
A final question that I'm sure has an answer that need to answer right away, but I'm just curious about like where in the process sort of the communications and community engagement teams are brought in to understand how these steps are working, especially as we're talking about things like workforce development, change management, project management, and all these other components. Just having maybe folks along for the ride to better inform some of those strategies moving forward could sort of lower the barrier to entry to some of the next steps when we're talking about those facets internally and externally.
Chair, we're at an interesting, it's such a good comment. We've done that in that our program and project teams will bring community engagement in early to think about some of those things. I think occasionally that can be really sort of linear or like siloed in that. And we have the zoomed out community engagement picture for the city and for public works, but we're seeing a bit of a transformation right now where we're getting a kind of a broader community engagement strategy and some tactics that spread across public works and ensuring, and then down to the like sort of individual level and who's having which conversation, so that we're pulling on the pieces that matter and ensuring that we're using the different touch points that we have to share those messages. So we're building on what has been the success of that CE department, but seeing sort of, we've got some new folks in and a build out of that group and seeing that shift. But I think it's something for us to always be thinking about is it's probably never too early to be having them at the table. And that group, there's such power in having them not be, in this case, water renewal experts, but be communications experts that learn the pieces of water renewal and of public works to help us connect with the community in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just go back to the, if you can see it, you can be it kind of thing, and helping connect people who have that storytelling capacity to demonstrate like what it looks like to be a member of the City of Boise's Public Works team would maybe be a good aid when we're trying to recruit folks and lower barriers to entry to some solid careers here. Any other ideas, thoughts, questions from the, yes, Commissioner Lockett?
Chair, I'd like to better understand how, like, from a layman's perspective, when you're rebuilding pipe, how you coordinate with ACHD, for example. Like, if they're going to tear up the roads for road construction, let's get you guys doing the pipe at the same time. Obviously, you know this, but like, tell me how that really goes, okay? I want to know more about that, because that is part of why we see an excess of construction and roads torn up. Because one example, I will be so brief, but it's right by my office. So I see it every morning. 8th Street, if you are north of State Street, has been torn up like 3 times, like once for utility work, then they're redoing the sidewalks, then someone else did something. And I was like, this is literally a disaster, a literal disaster in downtown. First world disaster. Let me be clear. This is a first world problem. So tell me more. Let's learn about that when we're talking about Commissioner Wertz's request too, please. And maybe there's nothing we can do, but how we can support you. And do we write letters? What do we need to do here, people? Thank you.
Chair, Commissioner, thank you for the question. We do a lot of coordination with ACHD on an annual basis, and a lot of it happens at the staff level, where they'll give us a heads up that hey, in 2 years, we're going to be doing a resurfacing of 10th Street. So we'll go back and take a look at our project list, and we may see a project that's a pipeline replacement that's, they're going to do it in 2 years. We might not do it maybe until 4 years later. So, but it's like, okay, that 2 years on a 100-year asset, let's go ahead and do it. So we coordinate with them on those. Where there's misses, there's any number of excuses I could provide you, and none of them are really worth it. So it's just a matter, we just have to have better coordination. It can be challenging because there's so many different utilities in the right of way, whether it's fiber, whether it's water, wastewater. And so any one of those utilities might need to have a project, and which would go back, and maybe the ACHD had just finished a project. Maybe there's a fiber project that 3 years later they got to go back in. So we try as best we can. The other aspect that I would note, though, is several of the lane closures downtown are just it's development, and so that's a hard one to really navigate. They need to have a crane that's constructing if you're putting in a 20-story building. So sometimes that gets conflated with ACHD and the city and development, and so yes, they're all happening. And from a citizen standpoint, I don't care. The lanes are closed. I'm frustrated, but there's multiple sources for the lane closures. we do try to coordinate as best we can at the staff level, and we miss things certainly, but it's definitely a pain point right now. And so one of the things that in the mayor's office, we have folks that coordinate with ACHD, and we do a good job. ACHD does a good job with us too of letting us know when things are happening, and sometimes we just miss it.
Any other questions, comments, concerns, threats from the commission? All right. Well, hearing none, unless there's anything else, we'll wrap up this item. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you. And that brings us to the last regular item on our agenda, which is a commissioner forum, which I believe is just a regular check-in at the end of our meeting here. Is there anything from staff? I'll hand it to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to hear, this is a great example of a question on coordination with ACHD, and it can be better. And that's something we need to work on. Other things that you're hearing from your perspective, from citizens, what you're experiencing. So that's really kind of this at the end here. We're trying to get feedback from you all.
All right. I'll open it up to general feedback. Commissioner Morgan.
Thanks, Chair. I recently became a homeowner and very excitingly got our first water renewal or water recycling bill. Is that what it is? Yes. And so just have a question about the billing about it. And there probably is something that is very explanatory, but my partner did not do a lot of deep diving. And so wanted to check. I think we mentioned at a previous meeting that it goes through Seattle for simplicity and like the billing services. Is that correct?
Chair, I'll have to double check. I think we changed that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
She was just sketched out. She's like, I don't understand why we're going through Seattle when we live in Boise.
and actually, yes. Okay. I'm remembering now.
Okay.
So we actually were paying an extra, I want to say it was $30,000 or $35,000
Oh,
a
yeah.
year
Mhm.
to have the Boise address on the envelope
Yeah,
for
We
that
did have
exact
this
reason.
conversation. Uh-huh.
And we decided it's like, why are we that? Let's just save the money
Yeah.
and try to, as questions come in, we can deal with it. So she got sketched out about the Seattle address. No reason to be sketched
Normal.
out. It's saving money on our end. Yeah, it's just it's who we use the billing through.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Good
We've been
question.
getting a lot of scams because as you become a homeowner, they're just like pushing all these things because they think you're flush with money when you're now broke. But I really appreciate having that security and knowing. And thanks for
Great
clarifying
question.
that because I can make sure that I can like circulate that among
Yeah,
my
great
friends as
questions.
well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else from the commission? Commissioner Wertz.
So at our May meeting, we had a really good conversation with Peter McCullough and team on the solid waste strategies, and we voted, as I recall. Didn't we do yeah. And I'm just interested. I thought that was a good discussion, and I'm interested. Maybe it isn't so much results maybe from us or results from the larger community, because I think that was the idea. And maybe that's not today, but it's something I'm interested in.
Chair, Commissioner Wertz, thank you for the question. Yes, we're definitely going to come back with a follow-up. I think we're probably a couple months out of kind of a final draft of the plan, but let me go back and check. It's definitely something we're planning on bringing back to the commission. Thank you for the question. So.
Any other feedback, word on the street from the commission? Commissioner Pagan?
I wasn't able to be at the May meeting, and I can't remember, are the slides available for that meeting? I couldn't remember if I saw them I just saw the agenda, but okay.
I'm looking behind you, sorry. Chair, Commissioner, yes, those are available. In fact, is the recording also available online, Robin? Yeah, okay. Getting the nod. So you can go back. Do you want to? Robin will follow up, but you can get access to the actual recording. You can watch the.
Yeah, that would be really helpful just
Yep.
to catch up on some of the conversation, because I know that a lot of the people that I talked to were really interested in the solid waste program, especially around the composting changes.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that I catch up on that
Great.
conversation. And then I also wanted to note that the watershed project has been a big hit for as far as my work goes with the tourism office, they've seen a lot of interest for journalists coming to see it, especially when they have children to come in and see it. So
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, it's a unique sustainability moment kind of for the city to kind of be able to talk about, because we don't really talk about too much of our sustainability. I mean, you can mention that we have geothermal heating districts and things like that, and you can kind of see those plaques on the buildings, but there isn't really a place that we go and kind of talk about what we're doing. And so that's a great spot for people who are really interested in that, and travelers who are really concerned about that. And so, yeah, that's been a big hit.
Chair and Commissioner, we may follow up just with some questions on that. That's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Awesome. And then a quick plug, you can always find the City of Boise's Public Meetings YouTube channel and smash that subscribe button for all of your City of Boise public information needs. I highly recommend. So yeah, please do that. It's a resource that I make use of all the time. Any other information from the commission? Commissioner Thornfeld.
Thank you, Chair. This is kind of more of, a comment, but, floating the river and stuff this summer, like with all my friends, like sometimes like seeing trash and stuff in the river just makes me so sad, like knowing all the inner workings behind water in the city. But then during your presentation, seeing that 85% of like people who care about the river, like made me feel good. So that's just kind of a thing. But also, with the watershed, like all of the people I know that have kids, like I coach gymnastics, all of the parents, everything, I'm like, go to the watershed, go to the watershed. And some of them who went, like, came back, told me how much they loved it, appreciated that it was free. Like, so I'm just proud of us, proud of the city that we were able to provide stuff like that. So, yeah.
Commissioner Ellis.
I was really trying to think if there's anything else I could bring in. I guess what I would share is that Lisa Knapp and I, so she's the compost person under Peter's team. We've been talking. I'm trying to get food waste management going at Boise State, and I got to learn what the code is for the food waste drop off that's in Fort Boise. And I tried it this weekend because I was cleaning out my compost bin because it needs to be cleaned out. And I tell everybody, I guess that's another point. I tell everybody you can put food in it now, and you can put all kinds of food. And every single time, what? You can? What kinds? But you can only put fruits and vegetables. No, you can put everything. And I just say, don't put oil in it. Because I go, that's the one that stands out that I remember. So still to this day, and they were like, they get mad at me. When did they do that? I'm like, it's been about 8 months now. And they're like, what? Can't believe that they don't know that. But then they laugh because then they always know I'm the one that brings stuff up. But back to trying out the food waste drop off. That was quite pleasant. It is neat and tidy. It's was very easy for me to just put a little bit. I was just trying it out with my little bin that I got a long time ago from the city when we started the compost bins. It was quite nice. And we're hopefully looking at maybe expanding and maybe putting one that just happens to be on the Boise State campus by the glass recycling bin. That's the city's glass recycling bin, but it's on the Boise State campus. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Could be very exciting.
Chair, Commissioner, thank you for the feedback. And the staff, they did it. When they conceived of the concept, it was really, like we talked a lot about, it has to be neat, tidy, squared away, because we don't want that impression of that folks to get that impression, and it just doesn't send the message we're looking for. But they are looking at expanding. We'll see if it goes to Boise State. But it's been really successful. We've gotten a lot of really good feedback. We can do a much better job educating on the expansion of what can be received. That's heard. I'll talk to the CE team about it.
Any other items from the commission? All right, seeing none. If there is no other business to come before the Public Works Commission today, then I think that we can I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Chair, I so move.
We have a move from Commissioner Morgan. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Second from Commissioner Werntz. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.